Hey guys, it's DRAGONCANNON. I am here. I've decided to do something a little different today. I have a completely stock install going on here, and I am going to do a moon tutorial. How to get there, how to land on it, how to get home, and of course how to build a rocket capable of doing these things. So we're going to start off. We're going to use the beautiful Mark I lander can, the new part that Clara gave us in the most recent version. This will be our capsule. We will bring one Kerbal to the moon and bring him back home. So what we're going to do after that, we're going to go to Control and we're going to put on an advanced SAS module. We'll then put on this fuel tank. It's the second smallest one, so we'll give him that guy with the LV909 liquid engine, the little tiny one, this guy here. That thing is great for moon missions. And on top we're going to go ahead and put the little Mark 16 parachute. I mean, you can put a different one if you want, it doesn't really matter. I just happen to like that one. And then we're going to do 4 times symmetry and make sure you have angle snap on here. And we're going to put the heavy landing legs because I prefer them. And then we're going to go back to 1 times symmetry here and put one of these down here, and then take the yellow one. We're going to put another one of these up above it here so that our Kerbinauts can get out. So that will be our lander and return to Kerbin vehicle. Below that, of course, we are going to need a decoupler. So we will take the TR-18A decoupler and we will put that down there. And then we're going to go back again and take this adapter and put him here. Okay, and under propulsion, put up the medium of the 2-meter tanks, and we're going to go ahead and put a skipper engine on that. So that will be our injection phase. That'll get us to the moon, and that will finish our orbit and get us to the moon, really. So beneath that now, we're going to go again into the coupler, and we'll put 2 more of these tanks. You know, we can even put 3 of those tanks. And then we're going to put a mainsail engine underneath it. We are going to go ahead to structural, put on 2 of these launch clamps. Make sure all the staging is set up correctly. And we will name our vessel after Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon, Armstrong 1. We're going to save that and launch. So here we are on the pad. Make sure you turn your SAS on. That you do that by hitting T. Throttle up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit spacebar and we launch. We will climb straight up. Once we reach about 150 meters a second, I'm going to throttle back a little bit because you reach terminal velocity and you're fighting drag to basically, you're fighting against drag and losing delta V. You're losing energy fighting that drag. So there's a maximum speed based on atmospheric pressure that you can travel. And that changes based on altitude. Of course, once you get to about 12, 13 kilometers and you start your gravity turn, it becomes irrelevant and you can throttle all the way back up. But as of right now, you can see I'm approaching like close to 150, which is about terminal velocity at 5,000 meters. So I've throttled back. And I'm going to keep the throttle about here. I want to get just above around 200 at 210 kilometers when I start my gravity turn. Maybe about 210, maybe a little, maybe 220. As you can see, I'm getting up high. My speed's getting up. So we're looking on pace to get about where I want to be, 9,000 meters. Once I get up to 10,000 meters, I'm going to turn my SAS off, and I'm going to turn about 45 degrees over east, which is the 90 on the nav ball down here. So I want to be about right on that 90 here, and I'm going to turn my SAS back on and let my ship hold that course. And I'm going to throttle back up. And the only thing I need to watch on throttle now is if it looks like my ship is either going to shake itself apart or it's going to overheat. So my overheat's going up, but I'm running out of fuel on this stage anyway, so you know, it doesn't really matter. I recommend when dropping stages that you turn the SAS off, because it sometimes changes the center of mass and will mess up your trajectory. At this point, I'm going to switch to the map view, and you want to pull up your nav ball, and we're going to watch here. As you can see, I'm getting up high. I want to turn even more, be pointed almost right at the horizon here. So, and once this gets up to about 80, I'm going to cut my engines by hitting X. You know, I would like, at that point, for us to be going at least like 1,1600 meters per second. So, you know, we're getting up close. We're already there at that speed, which is good. You know, we're ultimately, you need to get about 2,300 meters a second of horizontal velocity to get into orbit. So here we are, 79,000 meters apoapse. So what I'm going to do now is go to our apoapse here. I'm going to add a maneuver that will get us circularized. Oop, that's a little much. 77 and 82, close enough. So I now point myself at the blue indicator on the nav ball. So you can see I'm going to have about a 12-second burn in about 2 minutes. So we're unfortunately still in the atmosphere, so we cannot really time warp. We can do a little physical time warp, I guess. Why not? Don't show this again. There we go, we're getting to the edge of the atmosphere. And what's great about the maneuver node is I can fly it from here, so we can watch us fly the spacecraft. Here we go, we're getting up. In a few seconds we'll burn the engines. Since it's a 12-second burn, I want to start it about 5 to 6 seconds early. I'm a little late, but close enough. And we'll just watch as we burn away the necessary delta V here. And we'll cut our engines when this gets down to 0. Close enough. We'll look at the map to make sure, apoapse, periapse. It's not that circular, but we are in orbit. So, as we say, it's good enough for government work. Now, we need to go figure out how to go about plotting a trajectory to the moon. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to zoom out, and we want to place it so that the moon, it doesn't really matter where you place it, but click on the moon and set it as your target. You'll see your ascending node and descending node. Look at them. If they're within 1 degree, I say don't worry about it. If not, you will have to make inclination changes probably, but in this case we are not going to worry about that. So we're going to do this the old school way. We don't need a maneuver node. What we're going to do, we're pointed now, we're just going to time warp a little bit until we see the moon come over the horizon. And once we see the moon come over the horizon, we are going to burn prograde for our moon intercept course that will get us an encounter with the moon's sphere of influence. So there's the sun. Should be coming up, and there it is. So we are going to orient ourselves towards the prograde marker and turn on the SAS again. Throttle up. And we're going to switch to the map view and watch our trajectory. It's going to come out here and we should end up with the moon intersect somewhere over here. So I start, as it gets close, lower the throttle because it's going to go really fast and you don't want to miss it. See, well, we almost missed it there, but we're good. We have an encounter. It's going to actually take us crashing into the moon, it looks like. So we're going to have to make some adjustments eventually. But right now, we'll go ahead and time warp a bit out to the moon. And that will be good. We're going to have to be very careful when we get here not to crash into the moon and not to time warp past it. I've made that mistake many times, as have many people. I'm sure you have seen on the forums and on Reddit, and it is a very, very common problem that people complain about. There are some great mods that can help with that, but this is the vanilla game here right now, so we aren't using any of them. So here we are, we're getting close to our moon encounter. And we have our moon encounter. So what we're going to want to do here, because we have a course that takes us crashing into the moon, we want to just point ourselves at the horizon on the prograde side, so at 90 degrees. And burn until we have a periapse that is something that sounds like what we want. So over here, periapse 47, that's good. So now we have that. We're going to go ahead and set up a maneuver down here at periapse to get ourselves into orbit. Basically, all we're doing is slowing down. We have to kill all this velocity that we have in order to stay in the sphere of influence of the moon. So we'll get ourselves pointed again at our blue nav ball indicator. We have 1 hour and 32 minutes until that, so I think we should time warp until it. This is one of the big advantages we Kerbalers have over real astronauts. They cannot time warp until their maneuvers. It is a pain in the butt, apparently. But, you know, they get to go in space, so, you know, can't complain, right? And so, get as close as possible to this indicator here. Doesn't have to be perfect. We want to be as close as possible to the node. And we're going to go ahead and burn. And we're good. Okay, good enough. Now that's a very elliptical orbit, but it doesn't actually matter. A lot of people really focus on getting their orbit perfectly circular around the moon. But the fact of the matter is it actually doesn't matter at all. So now we're going to decide where we want to land. Let's look out here at the map again. I think we should land on the Kerbin side. So we basically want to land about where we're at now. No, we want to land actually over here. So what we'll do... No, we're going to land here. What we will do here is I'm just going to go ahead and burn retrograde and kill the rest of the fuel that's left in this stage. As soon as it's done, we'll cut the engines and we're going to drop that stage. Now, our trajectory is already taking us down to the surface, which is good. Now what we're going to want to do, we have to worry about horizontal velocity quite a bit here. So I keep myself pointed at the horizon for the time being, and we're going to warp a little bit. And that's good. So now once we're about 13 kilometers, we're going to need to kill all of our orbital velocity. I recommend making sure your nav ball is on surface, and you want to get it so that your retrograde marker is pointed basically straight up. So you do that by burning more or less at the horizon until, then you want to start pointing up a little bit though, because you don't want to come down too fast and crash. You can go ahead and deploy your landing gear. So you want to stay basically somewhere between the horizon and your retrograde marker. And once you get down to like below 50 meters a second, you can go ahead and cut your engines. Orient yourself again at the retrograde marker. Just try to get the retrograde marker pointed as much straight up on the nav ball as humanly possible, because you want to be going straight down when you land. You don't want to be going sideways. It's not, you know, it can create rapid unplanned disassembly of your spacecraft. So as we're sitting here, you're coming down. You want to keep now yourself pointed basically straight up too, and just keep your engine firing a little bit to keep your speed down. And once you start to see your shadow, you know, you'll add some throttle. You want to touch down somewhere between 5 and 10 meters a second. And as we're getting kind of close, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and throttle up. There's our shadow. Throttle up some more. And there we go at 4 meters a second. And we have touched down on the surface of the moon. So now that you've touched down, of course, you can go ahead and extend the ladders. Extend ladder. Extend ladder, and go out on your EVA. We'll take Jeb down onto the surface of the moon. Whoopa! Here he goes. And you can plant the flag. We're not going to put a plaque on it. And now that Jeb has planted his flag, he's ready to go back to Kerbin. Climbing back up into our spacecraft. And now, when you take off from the moon, no, we'll go ahead and close these because why not? When you take off from the moon, just go full throttle and almost immediately start turning towards 90. Like this, almost completely sideways. There is no atmosphere, so you start your gravity turn basically immediately. You can go ahead and switch to here. Once I get up to about 10,000, 15,000, I'm going to cut my engines and coast up for our orbital insertion. Okay, so we're at about 10 kilometers apoapse. Set up a maneuver to set ourselves into a lunar orbit here. So that's actually more than we need this maneuver, but it gives us an idea of where to point. I actually don't even, I'm going to delete the maneuver in a minute. I just wanted to orient this, and I'm going to watch our actual trajectory as we burn. So let's just warp a couple seconds up to the apoapse here. And we'll go ahead and start our burn. And as soon as we get a periapse, basically, I'm going to cut our engines. Now, to go back to Kerbin, we're just going to want to burn prograde on the Kerbin side. So, which is great, because that's our periapse. That's taking advantage of the old birth effect as well. So I'm going to set up a maneuver. And as you see, that takes us on a trajectory, a re-entry trajectory to Kerbin. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves set up for that maneuver. and we'll warp ourselves until it's time. Okay, almost there. And we'll go ahead and fire our engines. But I'm going to turn up a little bit. We don't want to be pointed too much towards the ground. And we'll just watch our projected trajectory at this point. Should set us up for a Kerbin intercept. And there we go. We are now on a return trajectory. So now let's just bring Jeb home. We'll go ahead and warp out of the sphere of influence of the moon. Well, that might take a while. Okay, let's see if we can do some warping now. Good. And as you can see, we're in Kerbin's sphere of influence. We'll just keep on warping until we get pretty close to Kerbin, and then we will be re-entering soon. So we're going to go ahead and point our ship retrograde, because even though re-entry effects aren't in the game yet, well, real effects, just visuals in the game right now. When they are, in real life, you re-enter retrograde usually to accept the heat better and the G-forces. So we should be getting some good re-entry flames on this. We're coming in hot. Here we go, we're in the atmosphere. Now, we don't have a decoupler for our capsule, so when we deploy the parachute, we might still need to fire our engine a bit on landing, which we have plenty of fuel to do. Even though we're going to hit the ocean, we still might need to slow ourselves down a little bit for touchdown. So, we'll see how that plays. But first, let's go ahead and let ourselves aero brake. Look at that flaming goodness. Jeb is grinning. Let's see what it looks like for him. And here we go. Now that we're past the re-entry heat, have some Mach effects. And they're going away, so we're going to turn off the SAS and deploy the parachute. And watch our velocity. If we were coming down overland, I would deploy the landing legs, but they don't like water very much, so we're not going to deploy them for that. Once we get to 500 meters, the main chute will deploy. And we are going slow enough, it appears that we will survive our splashdown. Add a little physics warp here until we get down. 2, 1, touchdown. And he survived, even though we lost our fuel tank. The capsule did survive. And Jeb survived. That is how you too can go to the moon and return safely to Kerbin. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like it, subscribe, whatever. Hope everyone's having a good one, and I'll see you guys later.